sit down, could you raise your right hand? You swear and affirm the information and testimony you provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? You may be seated. And Mr. Fortunato, you may inquire.
Good morning. Would you please state your name for the record?
Samuel J. Kirkley,
And could you spell that for us?
Kirkley.
Thank you. Where do you live, Mr. Kirkley?
Lacey,
How long have you lived there?
a week or two. Just moved. I used to live downtown.
And what is your occupation?
Right now, I'm getting disability or working on getting disability, and that's why I was at the DSHS office.
So I want to talk about a little bit kind of what happened before the incident. Can you walk me through what happened on the afternoon of July 20th, 2023?
I will do my best. It was another boring day at the DSHS office. I had to go in for the 6-month renewal thing, and I was just there waiting my turn. I'd been there, I think, an hour before the incident.
And I know you kind of went into this a little bit, but as much as you're comfortable sharing, what was the reason that you were at the DSHS office that day in particular?
I had the 6-month renewal. You have to do a renewal by paper, or you go in or they stop your benefits. So I had to go in because I forgot about it. I had to do it that day because I had, had to be done before the end of the month. So I went in, got it done.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that's the reason I was there.
And this was for disability benefits, you'd said?
Yes,
Okay.
It's for my welfare and the disability. It's all kind of grouped together in a nice mess.
Do you remember about what time you arrived at the office?
I think it was like 10 or 11. I normally go in the morning, but I didn't realize until I got the letter in the mail. So then I went to there realizing I had to do it in a couple days.
Okay. And where is this DSHS office located?
In Tumwater off Capitol Boulevard, kind of adjacent to Israel.
Okay. Can you briefly describe to me what the layout of the DSHS office is?
What I would consider the main office, you walk in the door and then there's a bunch of chairs. There's the check-in counter right here. Over here are some windows. You can talk to people. Over here is the door that goes into, like, I'd call it a corridor for the main building. And then of course there's lots of offices in the back that are kind of out of sight that you don't see when you're there.
Were you the only patron at the office that day?
No, it was pretty packed.
Okay, and by pretty packed, about how many people would you say were there?
I'd say maybe a dozen or two.
So can you tell me a little bit about what led up to that incident based on your recollection?
Well, the incident, from what I remember, kind of happened out in that corridor I described, not in the DSHS office proper, but like the corridor, because I was sitting on my phone, almost directly looking at the door that leads from the corridor. So I did not see the two people come in. I noticed because I stopped and I looked up because I heard a scuffle. And then I was sitting there and then I watched what happened kind of in amazement because it was at the frickin' DSHS office. Who comes into there to do anything other than to speak to them and then leave?
You said you heard a scuffle. Based on your understanding, did you get anything about what the topic of conversation might have been?
Yes, clearly. Do not record. The security guard was telling the assailant, you do not record in here, do not take pictures of these people.
Okay, just a second. I'm going to overrule the objection and you can continue.
Oh, sorry.
So good. If you need to re-ask your question and have him restart.
Just again, what the content of that conversation was, the topic.
The topic from the beginning to the end was the security guard telling him to not record the people in there. He does not need his phone. That was the gist, and then it led into an altercation and some physical contact.
So you said there were two individuals speaking. One was the security guard. is the other individual that was speaking to the security guard present in this courtroom?
I think it's him, but.
Would you be able to identify him with an article of clothing that he's wearing currently?
I'm not sure, to be honest.
Just what, like an article of clothing
what he
that,
was
that
wearing?
he's wearing currently in this courtroom.
The gray shirt.
And Your Honor, let the record reflect that the witness is pointing to Mr. Jeremiah Farley.
It will.
I didn't know his name, so.
You said that other patrons were in the waiting area. Were they in the waiting area while this incident occurred?
Yes, where the incident occurred, it was kind of in the corner of the check-in counter and the door that leads to the corridor, where they were here, we were all over here. And you know, in the seating area proper, where you actually sit down.
Okay.
So it didn't happen in the group of people. It was kind of isolated because it skirted, when it came into our area, they were right inside the door. And then it kind
of. Were any of these patrons speaking with DSHS personnel to your observation?
Not in the beginning. When after the assault occurred and it kind of settled down a bit, then the gentleman was talking to DSHS and I wasn't really listening because everybody there was getting ready to take him down because he assaulted the security officer, if my recollection is correct, 3 times. And we did not think, the whole group, the mob mentality was, this is not acceptable.
Did anyone else in the office, any of the other patrons, appear to have recording devices out?
No, we all had phones out, but nobody was recording to my knowledge because we're all looking at our phones, where the individual's phone, he was recording. And the security guard did say a couple times, if I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure, but you cannot record these people. Don't record them. You cannot record these people.
Had Mr. Farley asked you for permission to be recorded?
No.
Did Mr. Farley say anything to the security guard as they entered the waiting room area of the
Don't
office?
touch me. You can't touch my phone. I can do this. I can do what I want. Just very combative, very upset, very like, I'm going to challenge the system, but it's a DSHS office. What's the point?
Did you observe any recording devices in Mr. Farley's control at the time?
If you include his cell phone, yes, but an actual like device, like a camcorder, no. His cell phone was up and clearly looked like what was recording, not, you know, perusing the internet or looking at cats on it.
And where was this recording device located? You said he was holding it.
He was holding his phone.
Okay. Okay.
And his phone, he was holding it out of the reach of the security guard. And the security guard said a couple times, you can't record. And then he would also say, you can't record the people. So I do remember that slight distinction.
One moment, Your Honor. Based on your observations, what was the security guard's demeanor when speaking with Mr. Farley?
Calm, but a slightly elevated. He was very vocal, but he wasn't yelling. He wasn't threatening.
And kind of why would you say that? Kind of paint a little picture here. Maybe what was his facial expression at the time?
Neutral, but strained. I mean, they were physically, but they weren't necessarily like fighting at that moment. It was a lot of like trying to grab the phone, like a scuffle without actually fighting.
And what was his tone of voice at the time?
The security guard?
The security guard.
Again, very neutral, kind of flat, very like trained, like he's, you know, doing his training. He's like, you know, when you deal with somebody who is aggressive or whatever, you talk calmly, you talk directly, you talk firmly. Like, you know, he wasn't yelling or screaming or being irrational, but he also wasn't being passive. He was very clear in the fact that what the assailant was doing was not okay.
And prior to the incident, immediately prior, what was Mr. Farley's demeanor based on your observations?
After the incident and the police were there.
Oh,
He,
excuse me. I meant prior to the incident, as he was entering the waiting area.
from what I heard, my head was not up as they actually entered. So
Okay.
I cannot say, but the conversation had started out in the corridor. And then, like I said, the security guard was close to him and telling him not to record. And like I said, they didn't walk in, they actually kind of like walked in and skirted around the perimeter. And I would say Mr. Farley was defiant, and I can do what I want was the impression I got. Not saying that's absolutely truth, but the security guard, kept telling him, you can't do this. And he was like, I can do what I want. It's a state building, all of this. And he was very agitated.
And why would you say he appeared to be agitated? What did you observe?
The way he was talking to the security guard, the way he was looking around, the way he was stating his rights, I can do what stuff like that. He wasn't very calm in talking to the security guard. He wasn't saying, I would like to record for a reason. He was like, I can record because I can. I have that right, was the impression I was getting.
And after receiving requests to discontinue recording, did it appear that he obliged and discontinued recording?
No, that's what led to the physical violence. The security guard was trying to grab the phone, which I'm not saying is right or wrong. Mr. Farley hit him once and then hit him again in the face. And then, if I remember correctly, the scuffle ended up kind of toward the other side as it scuffled around. And I think he hit him again, and then he threatened that he can hit him. He was going to hit him again. He was screaming, yelling at the DSHS people because they came out. They were trying to talk him down. All of us in the waiting room were getting mob mentality because we're like, the security guard's just trying to do his damn job, and this guy comes in here and starts causing this big issue. And we were all just shocked. I mean, we were all there doing our thing. It's the DSHS office. It sucks no matter what. And then for somebody to come in and assault a security guard just felt surreal. That's why some of the memories I have aren't exactly super clear, because that doesn't happen. You're not used to sitting in the welfare office and having an assault. This isn't LA, it's Olympia.
From your perspective, you said the security guard reached towards the phone?
Yes.
From your perspective, did the security guard appear to make contact with Mr. Farley's person?
Indirectly. He wasn't hitting him. He wasn't trying to grab him. He was kind of using his body to move him, but he did grab or go for the phone a few times. And Mr. Farley then stated loudly, don't touch my phone. And if I remember correctly, that's what initiated the physical contact, that the security guard was trying to get the phone, and Mr. Farley responded with physical violence.
And you said Mr. Farley responded with physical violence. Do you want to go into a little more detail about that?
He, as close as he and the security guard were, and the security guard was trying to grab his phone, he hit him in the face.
Was it just once?
Twice.
And was that the end of the physical contact?
No, if I remember correctly, I think there was more physical contact as it kind of escalated a bit, because everybody was getting riled up. The staff was getting riled up. The people were getting riled up. And then, if I remember correctly, he went for the phone again when they were over in the other area. But like I said, it's all kind of weird because it's surreal. It's the welfare office.
How hard would you say Mr. Farley struck Mr. Rain, or the security guard in this case?
For my guesstimation, not knowing the gentleman, seeing his build and stuff, I would guess he probably hit him at 50% power. It wasn't something that knocked the guard out, but it hurt him.
How did the security guard respond to Mr. Farley striking him?
He actually stayed really calm, telling him, can't do that. Like, he didn't yell or scream. The security guard never went crazy. He never broke training or protocol, which I remember was pretty impressive considering what happened.
How did Mr. Farley react after his physical contact with the security guard?
He was still very vocal. Still, I can do what I want. You tried to touch me. You tried to take my stuff. I can hit you. He got into yelling matches with other patrons at the DSHS, like yelling matches, like this one heavyset woman and him just were yelling at each other, and just the whole scene was just out of a movie. Like I said, that's it. Everything was so crazy.
You said he continued yelling. What did he say?
I can do what I want. Shut your mouth. He used, derogatory terms. He was just, to me, from what I could see, he had no other business there other than to go in and cause a problem. Because it started outside the DSHS office, because they came in. So I don't know what happened out there at all. Completely will admit that, but it started out there because it ended up in the office proper. They came in. So I'm guessing they told him out there, don't record, because that's what the scuffle was as it came into the office. So, I mean, sorry. It just, like I said, it's the DSHS office. You don't expect, a brawl to occur, and you don't expect somebody to go in there and, like, after they have been violent, they still threaten the people.
After this physical altercation occurred, did Mr. Farley appear to discontinue recording?
Not really, because he eventually got a DSHS person finally talk to him and kind of calm the situation down, try to figure out, why are you here? What are you doing? I didn't hear that. I wasn't paying attention. Me and the other people were talking because we were all in awe. Like, did this really happen? Like, because like I said, it's, he was agitated, he was upset, and I don't know why. Sure, the security guard was annoying him, but if somebody told me, hey, this is a DSHS office, you can't record people. Okay, no problem, done.
And it appeared that while he was continuing to talk to the DSHS person after the incident, that he was continuing to record.
I believe so, but I don't want to say 100% sure,
just
but
based
yes,
off your observations.
if I remember correctly, yes.
And how did you personally react to Mr. Farley striking the security guard?
It kind of triggered me because I have myself been a victim of domestic violence. That's one of the reasons why I've been saying, what I remember, because it was a bit traumatic, like I said, to have somebody come in and beat up a security guard at the welfare office. Really? Find a hobby.
Did others in the office react to the confrontation? You said that there was some
probably
others
about 4 or 5 of the DSHS office people did come out, and they started telling him, what are you doing? What's up? Why are you here? That about the same time that the personnel was talking to him, the mob mentality had already been created, and a couple people were kind of headed toward him. And then a couple people were yelling at him, like, what's your problem? Why are you here hitting somebody like this? Like,
you talk about this kind of mob mentality as a reaction to this incident of the patrons.
Oh yeah, we were like, what the hell are you doing? Why are you doing this? What's your problem? You want to hit somebody real? A couple gentlemen, burlier, taller people, vaguely like there. It was about 4 or 5 of us. I was just like, what the hell's wrong with you? Like, what is wrong with you?
So based off of that, what is your impression of the tone of the room after the incident occurred, immediately afterwards?
After the incident, like, settled down and people were calmed down, it was, I'd say, shock, honestly. Like, just like I keep saying, like, what the hell? It's the DSHS office. Why did you come in here? And then Mr. Farley got upset, or like seemed shocked that the mob was getting ready to, like, take care of him. And when I mean that, like, restrain him, not physically hurt him. Like, you don't need to be causing any more pain to anybody.
So you went into a little bit of detail about this, but what occurred after Mr. Farley struck the security guard?
That's after the physical violence. That's what turned everything up. As soon as because we were all kind of looking at the scuffle, but as soon as he got hit, when Mr. Farley hit the security guard, that is when the mob mentality almost instantly started. And people were saying like, what the hell's wrong with you? You need to stop. And then that's when DSHS, the personnel started kind of coming out, and they were even shocked and kind of staying back a little bit, I think, for their own safety.
So I think you might have gone into a little bit of detail on this, but did anyone provide aid to the security guard at that point or intervene?
I believe a DSHS person came out and kind of was a buffer, and talked him down, or two DSHS people.
And excuse me, this is to the security guards.
Yeah,
Okay.
the two
Okay.
DSHS people that came out were talking to him, trying to figure out what he's doing, why he's doing it, getting him calmed down. They were trying to de-escalate the situation. Then others were kind of calming down the mob mentality, because we were like, hey, what's wrong? And then there was 4 or 5 of us who specifically went to the police officer and said, hey, we would like to, give you our recollection, our information, because we all agreed, this was unacceptable. This isn't the Wild West.
Did anyone provide aid to Mr. Farley?
No, but we were getting ready to. After the first hit, that's, like I said, that's what riled up the crowd. Everybody there just trying to wait and get their time to speak with the DSHS people. Once he did, people started actually like getting out of their chairs and walking toward him. I remember a taller gentleman over on the left, because I was sitting here looking this way. He started to yell at him and telling him, what type of man are you that you come in and beat up I'm sorry, the security guard's a nice guy, but he's not very big. You could push him over with a hard breeze. And that's kind of what went on a lot back and forth, was the what's wrong with you, and the crowd was to a point unnecessarily riled up. Like they were still kind of like making comments about him and masculinity and all of that. Because again, I think everybody afterward, with the staff and the people in the office, were shocked. Like I said, it wasn't just a scuffle or even a, hey, you can't have your phone, and then whatever, and then that it escalated into physical violence where it doesn't seem like it needed to. In my opinion, I don't think the security guard should have grabbed the phone, but he shouldn't have had his phone. Had he not had his phone, like he asked, none of this would have happened. If somebody would have said, we can't have you recording these people, because I do remember the security guard said people, not just the office, but you can't record these people. And that's when because as soon as they came in, that's when it seemed to escalate, because the security guard was trying to get his phone from him, and reaching for the phone is what the guy hit him.
And that at that time, when that conversation was happening, there were people present in the office.
Oh, yeah. And we were all, like I said, most of us were on our phones. We were on our phones, and then almost all of us, you could tell, heard something, and we all kind of looked up collectively, like, what's going on? And then we were kind of there sitting there, I think, watching it in amazement. And then when Mr. Farley struck the security guard, that's when I stood up, other people stood up. Like, what are you doing? What's wrong with you? DSHS staff was notified. They came out. I believe another gentleman came out from the corridor area. I don't know how else to say it. It was just insane. It's a welfare office. I can't get over the fact it's a welfare office. We go in, we do our thing, we leave. There should be no physical violence. There's no reason to record people in the welfare office. This whole thing didn't have to happen, is how I see it at all.
And based off your perception of what happened immediately following the incident, you call it this mob mentality. None of the patrons that were there visiting went up to Mr. Farley to console him or to
Be on his side?
I guess for
No.
lack of a better term, yes.
No. I was shocked that the DSHS people were actually talking to him. There was 4 of us yelling that call the cops. This dude needs to take his ass to jail. He assaulted a person in DSHS office for no reason, was all of our attitude. We were all pissed because it slowed down being in the DSHS office even longer. So we were there, you know, an extra probably 45 minutes because, you know, the staff had to stop and deal with this incident that never should have been an incident to begin with.
Well, thank you for your time. City has no further questions.
Ms. Rowe, you may cross-examine.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Mr.
Hello.
Kirkley.
Yes.
You indicated that, at the initial questioning by the city of Tumwater, excuse me, they asked you to describe the layout of the office. Have you personally seen any notices regarding any recording?
No. That was brought up and asked, and as I said to the police officer then, I'll say it now, no, there was no signs that I saw in the main office. There may have been one in the corridor, but I do not know, so I can say no, I did not see one. Am I allowed to follow up with that statement?
Sure,
No.
she's going to ask the questions, you
Okay.
answer them, and then if they have follow-up questions, they can ask them.
Okay.
And you indicated also that the incident happened in the corridor before both the security guard and Mr. Farley were even inside the office. Is that correct?
Yes, but I do not know what happened in that corridor. All I know is that the reason I say that I do know what happened in the corridor is because they were talking and yelling and next to each other in an uncomfortable position as they were coming in the door.
Describe what you mean by next to each other in an uncomfortable position.
The security guard was trying to stop him from coming in. That's why they skirted around the perimeter, as I was describing earlier, is because the security guard, as I said, from what little training I've had, was doing what he was trained. He was trying to keep Mr. Farley from everybody else. He was trying to block him from recording. And that's why I say I don't know what happened in the corridor, but something did, because it's proceeded into the office proper where we were.
Understood, understood. Do you personally know whether this security guard had the right to try to confiscate Mr. Farley's phone?
No, I do not.
Objection, Your Honor, calls for conclusion,
Legal.
a legal conclusion.
Your Honor, I would argue that this
Well,
witness,
the question's been answered negatively, and
Okay.
so well, you could just move on and ask.
Strike
the
that
next question.
objection, Your Honor.
did you, during the incident, see or witness any DSHS employee coming over to Mr. Farley and advising him that he was not allowed to record?
I do not remember them saying that, but when the DSHS people were talking to Mr. Farley after the physical altercation, I wasn't really paying attention to what they were saying.
Okay, I wanted to know whether you heard, as well as the other patrons in the lobby, may have heard any DSHS employee advise Mr. Farley that he was not to record.
No, but I wasn't paying attention at that time either.
Understood. And you indicated that everybody in the lobby, well, most folks in the lobby, to your understanding, were all on their phones.
Yeah, most of the people that were single or, they're by themselves were on the phones, like myself, or some of them had kids. So most of us were preoccupied. We weren't staring at the corridor door. you know, Santa
you-
Claus could have walked in and we wouldn't have noticed till we lifted our heads up.
Understood. Did you notice anyone begin to record when the incident and the altercation happened?
Like other people,
Yes.
I did not see that.
Are you aware that there might be cameras in public spaces such as that?
I would assume there should or would be cameras all over it being a DSHS office. You know, a state building.
And what would those cameras be doing? Would they be recording?
My
Objection, Your Honor,
assumption,
this call-
Sustained.
Do you personally have any knowledge as to whether Mr. Farley actually had business there? Yes or no?
no,
During the melee, as you seem to testify to, did any of the patrons in the office object to being recorded?
a few people were upset once they realized that's what the security guard was doing to
Did
prevent the
anyone-
recording.
Express a objection
Yes,
to being recorded?
yes.
And who was that?
Other people, I did not get their names. We did not discuss it extensively, but like the heavier set woman, I remember she was a very large woman and she was yelling and screaming at Mr. Farley and he was yelling and screaming back.
So what the yelling and screaming, was it a yelling and screaming because you've invaded my privacy? Or
You're
was it yell?
recording
Hold
and
on,
you
if you wouldn't
shouldn't.
mind.
Sorry.
Okay, hang on just a minute. Let her finish her
Sorry.
question, and then when she's finished her question, you can answer. And because when two people are talking, no one can understand either one of
Yeah,
them.
sorry.
So Ms. Rowe, you can repeat your question, and then Mr. Kirkley, you can answer.
Was the yelling and screaming? I believe it was your testimony that the yelling and screaming was regarding what patrons believed to be a physical altercation between the two. Is that correct?
Yes.
And I believe you indicated that things that you overheard as the incident was coming from the hallway into the actual office itself was the security guard was saying you cannot record these people and without asking their permissions. Is that correct?
You cannot record these people and you cannot record. He may have said permission, but I don't remember it, but I do remember him stating you cannot record these people. Like that was the main gist. He was once.
Now, I understand.
Yeah.
Were you privy to the recording that was being taken in real time?
No,
Were you privy to any screenshots that showed Mr. Farley recording any individuals? Did you see any recording that shows that Mr. Farley was recording people or these
Objection.
people?
Objection, Your Honor, relevant.
So I'm going to sustain the objection, and then you can ask your next question.
Now, you indicated that during the incident, you heard Mr. Farley saying over and over, "Don't touch me, don't touch my phone."
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yep.
And I believe you indicated that he was holding his cell phone. And that's what it appeared was a recording, correct?
Well, very obviously, yes, because it was, I'll use my phone he was like doing this. He wasn't doing this. He wasn't even doing this. It was this. And when the security guard was trying to grab it, he had it up here. So yes, I
Understood.
can say with,
Understood. Absolutely understood. And I believe it was your testimony that Mr. Farley was holding his phone out of the reach of the security guard,
yes,
and the security guard was going towards him, trying to grab his phone.
yes,
I believe you also testified that the security guard was in very close proximity to Mr. Farley in order to try to ascertain or to confiscate the phone. Is that
and
correct?
contain him, yes.
Pardon?
And contain him. He was trying to keep him away from us. That was what we all got the impression was the security guard was trying to keep him from recording us and kind of keep it separated. That's why they didn't just casually walk into the office talking like normal people in a welfare office talk.
Understood. And because of the tenure of the incident as it was going on, is it safe to assume that the security guard, in fact, I believe, was basically invading Mr. Farley's personal bubble? Yes or no?
Yes. But isn't that his job?
Okay, just
Sorry.
answer.
And I believe it was your testimony that in fact, I believe it was your characterization or your testimony that you didn't really know if the security guard should have been trying to get grabbed for his phone or not.
Exactly. I still agree with that.
Thank you. And I believe you also testified that Mr. Farley seemed agitated and was stating his rights. Is that correct?
I would say yelling and screaming them more than stating them.
And did you witness the security guard make contact with Mr. Farley?
His body, never.
Did the security guard make contact with Mr. Farley's?
Object, Your Honor. Asked and answered.
She can, I'm going to overrule objection for now until I hear the entire question. Ms. Rowe,
The security guard was reaching to grab Mr. Farley's phone,
Yes, the whole time.
and Mr. Farley's phone was in his hand,
Yes,
and the security guard and Mr. Farley were in close proximity to each other.
yes.
Now, you described the altercation that you witnessed. Did Mr. Farley, did you see Mr. Farley clench his hand in a fist?
If I remember correctly, yeah, he was very agitated. He wasn't in there calmly. He was vocal, yelling.
Did you see him
And
clench
his fist?
his fist?
When he hit the dude, yeah.
What arm did he use?
I believe it was his right arm. But again,
So what arm was the camera in?
his left and the right, it was being switched between because the card was going after it.
And I believe your testimony was the security guard went for Mr. Farley's phone once and twice, and then actually went for the phone the third time. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was something like that, very vocal, not a random trying to just grab the phone, telling him you do not need to record in here. You cannot record in here, going for the phone, not just going for the phone unexpectedly out of the blue.
Do you have any personal knowledge whether or not a security guard's duty is to confiscate other person's personal property? Yes or no?
Objection, Your Honor. Speculation.
What you witnessed was the security guard going for Mr. Farley's personal property. Is that correct?
Yes.
And I believe your testimony was that throughout the incident, the security guard stayed calm, correct?
Calm-ish. I mean, he was dealing with somebody who was trying to he was as calm as I think anybody could be. He was way calmer than I would have been at that point.
Understood. Thank you. And I believe you testified that from your opinion, the security guard never broke training protocol. What do you mean by that?
He was calm. He didn't yell or scream at the dude. He was loud but vocal, not yelling. He was very clear, telling the assailant what he needs to do is you cannot record these people in here.
But you don't know if his training protocol allows him to confiscate personal property. Yes
I
or
have no idea what their training protocol is.
Thank you. And I believe you indicated that you heard Mr. Farley basically yelling regarding being touched by the security guard and don't take my stuff.
You do it again, I'll hit you again. I could
I
do
asked
that.
Did you hear him say, stop touching him and he can't take his stuff?
Not exactly as you stated it, no.
How did he state?
Don't touch my stuff, back off. I can do what I want. You have no rights. I can come in and be an asshole to everybody.
He said, I can come in and be an asshole to everybody?
No, but that was what we all assumed.
But that's not the words you heard.
No.
And I believe that you indicated that it was your impression that Mr. Farley had no other business there but to cause problems. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Yes or no?
Okay, so hang on just a second. So ask your question again. I thought there was an objection.
There was, Your Honor.
Okay, so please restate your question just for the purpose of the record. Because again,
I believe you testified that it is your impression that Mr. Farley, and I believe I would quote, had no other business there but to cause problems. Is that correct?
Okay, don't answer that question. Is there an objection to that question?
There is, Your Honor.
Okay.
And the basis is that this is asked and answered. Many of these questions have already been answered that have repeatedly been asked by Ms. Rowe.
And I'm going to sustain the objection, partly based on your question. I think you asked if that was his testimony. And so he had already testified to that. So it is asked and answered. So I'll sustain the objection.
And I believe you testified that you believed that employees of DSHS came to out. Is that correct?
Your
There were
Honor,
other employees from DSHS, of DSHS, that were trying to de-escalate the situation?
objection, Your Honor, same basis.
I'll overrule this objection. You can answer that question. If you remember it, I can have her repeat it if you wish.
Yeah, no, DSHS personnel did come out. Two of them came out, and then more people came out from the offices, but they were behind the check-in area. Because he never checked in. So why was he there if he didn't hit the button like you're supposed to? You get a thing. You go to the desk. He never did that. Everybody who goes to
are people, did it appear that Mr. Farley was coming into the DSHS office?
Well, he didn't appear to come into the office. He was there.
And as part of the administrative personnel that came out to de-escalate the situation, did any of that personnel inform Mr. Farley that he could not record?
Objection, Your Honor. The witness has already said to Ms. Rowe that he did not hear any of the conversations that were had between the agent and Mr. Farley.
I'll overrule. You can answer the question.
I don't remember. I'm sure it was discussed because that's the whole reason the incident occurred.
But you don't remember hearing that?
No.
And during the conversation that the administrative personnel had with Mr. Farley, was he continuing to record that communication? Yes or no?
No.
Did he appear to be recording during the conversation with the administrator?
I was not paying attention very much to them. I was talking to the other patrons in
Understood. Thank you. And you indicated also that there were patrons that then went to law enforcement to give statements. Is that correct?
Objection, Your Honor. Same basis. This is a question that's already been answered.
Overruled. You can answer.
Yes, there was myself and two or three other people. The security guard and then a couple other people offered to give testimony. There was one person, the police officer came in and she gave him his name and number. And then I eventually was taken out of the office and then taken into a separate area to give my testimony or talk to the police officer.
Okay.
And he said there was other people who had given testimony, but he didn't go into names or anything with me personally.
Thank you. And I believe you testified as an answer to one of the state's questions that you don't think the security guard should have tried to get his phone. Why did you think that?
I do not think the security guard should have tried to grab his phone. I think he should have tried to get him out of the building, which I think he was trying. I believe he should have called for help sooner rather than later.
You believe who should have called for help?
The security guard. To take care of Mr. Farley, to get him out of the office or get him arrested.
Why would he need,
After you physically
Wait,
assault
excuse
somebody,
me.
you get arrested. Sorry.
Go ahead, Ms. Bro, you can ask your next question.
would you characterize someone trying to confiscate another person's property as an aggressive
Objection,
action?
objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Thank you, Mr. Kirkley. I don't think I have any other questions for you.
Any redirect, Mr. Fortunato?
Nothing from the city, Your Honor.
Okay, may this witness be excused?
Yes, he may.
Mr. Kirkley, you're free to step down. And you're free to leave.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.